Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. I'm your host, Scotty. I'm here with my co-host, Saur. Tonight, we are drafting the top 20 players on Inter Miami. But before we get to that, Saur, my friend, my co-host, how are you feeling today?
I'm good. Midweek, Friday's almost here. Can't ask for much. I always usually enjoy the draft episodes because it's nice and chill and we get to talk about the team and we get to talk about the players. I don't know if I'm looking forward to it today. I feel like we've messed up the list quite royally. We'll see how close it is to what we actually want the list to be. But I'm excited still because it's going to be fun regardless. How are you feeling?
I made my list, and I thought to myself, this team is not nearly as deep or talented as it was the last few times we made this list. And I think that was eye-opening to me. Like, I think I knew we were less deep. Certainly the coach doesn't trust some of the players as much as Tata Martino or whatever. But like, I think when you look at it 1 to 20, it starts to feel a little bit less impactful, a little less deep. And that is, I think, nervy.
Very much so.
Um, there's a couple things going around Inter Miami that maybe I should mention. I don't know how deeply we want to get into it, but I will just mention David Martinez found a new loan to Olimpia in Paraguay. Not really relevant, but I thought I'd mention it. And on the same note, Schneider Borgelin is now playing in Indonesia. So he went to the Netherlands for a year, and then his team got relegated, and they broke the contract or mutually parted. And now he's signed with a team from Indonesia. So if you ever thought a former Inter Miami player would be in Indonesia, well, now you found one.
We're a global team.
Yeah, exactly. Inter Miami's going to be wearing the blue kits this weekend. The new blue kits. Riptide is the name of the kit. We haven't seen it yet. We've seen the pictures. It's been available. I've got my Tabasco Segovia jersey on the couch over there. We're getting the graphics ready for it, so it's all fun and exciting. But that's happening this Saturday. I was really afraid they were going to do it during the Leagues Cup. Very happy to see that they're doing it sort of in a big game.
Yeah, I'm excited for these jerseys. They look good. I haven't ordered mine yet. I'm still on the fence about who I should get on the back. We'll see. But I like these jerseys. They're nice and slightly different blue from what we had last season. But I always like the alternate kits. And Riptide's a good name. It's a good name.
It is a good name. I think there was one other thing I wanted to mention. Oh, yeah. The MLS, I think, is voting this week on changing the calendar from
Oh,
a calendar year calendar to a what I would call an academic year calendar, but to be more in line with what they do in Europe, especially the big leagues in Europe. So that's there. There's meetings this week from the ownership groups, and that I think is on the agenda to vote for. I think it would be maybe two or 3 years until we actually saw that, but that could become official any day now. So I think we should. I don't know. Maybe we can spend a whole episode talking about the implications of that, especially if we get closer to it becoming a reality. But I thought I'd mention it because it's in the news.
no, that's interesting. And it'll be interesting to see how the viewership gets affected and how, there's a lot of implications from this. I don't know how I feel about it yet. Maybe I'll have to sit on it and digest it once it actually gets confirmed. I thought you were going to mention the All Star game. I didn't know you were going to throw this at me, but we'll see how it goes. The vote should be interesting.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the All-Star game? Because I'm trying to find a diplomatic way to approach it without
Well,
getting anyone angry.
Messi and Alba are not playing, and so I'm
Yeah,
not interested. Let's move on.
that's certainly true. There's been a big debate today about whether that's the right thing. I will just say Messi and Alba, it was reported today that they're not going to be showing up to the All-Star game. And the usual punishment for not showing up to the All-Star game, especially on the day of, would be a one-game suspension. So we will see if that comes to fruition, and if it doesn't, good for us. What I will
Well,
say is,
Haven't you heard that Messi picked up a knock in training, and then Alba
So
also
did
fell
Jordy.
down the stairs? Yeah. He fell down
Dude,
the stairs while he was going to the cafeteria.
the thing is, we actually don't have a left back on the roster other than Jordi Alba because Noah Allen's hurt, because David Martinez just left. Um, I guess we should I just want to say this. I think that if you think this is a stupid thing and there should be no reason Messi should get in trouble, I think that's totally fine. I think that makes a lot of sense. And if you think this is like the wrong thing to happen, I think that makes sense too. So I guess we should just leave it at that. I
As
think,
always, we'll sit on the fence with this one,
yeah,
and we'll let you
this
guys
is a
decide
fence
what's
sitter.
right or wrong.
I think maybe more importantly, it's you can be right. You can be on either side and still be right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Um, the draft. Anything else on your mind before we get to it?
I don't know if I'm ready. Okay, we can do this. We can do this.
We'll do it together. We'll start by going back to March 2025, the last time we did a top 20 draft. And this is what it looked like. It's on screen now for those listening on audio. It was Messi, Suarez, Busquets, Alba, Bright, Allen, Segovia, Frey, Allende, Aviles, Falcon, Kramaski, Ustadi, Redondo, Drake Callender, David Martinez, Fafa Bico, Robert Taylor, Julian Gressel, and Chelo Wegan. Now, here's the thing. We want to make this a snapshot in what we have right now. So David Martinez off the roster, not eligible for this draft. Obviously, Julian Gressel, Robert Taylor, no longer part of Inter Miami, not a part of this conversation today. But also, I think this is good timing because we're about to add Rodrigo de Paul. We're probably going to add maybe another player or two in the summer transfer window. So this gives us a snapshot of what we looked like before those arrivals come. And so the next time we do this after the season, those guys will be integrated. But no Rodrigo de Paul in this conversation tonight. I think that would have made things a lot easier for me, but I digress. Here's the ground rules. It's the best player. Who's the best player? Form can be a proxy, but it's not about form. Stats can be a proxy, but it's not about form. Potential can be a proxy, but it's not about potential. I think I just said stats can be a proxy, and it's not about form. Stats can be a proxy, but it's not about stats. All of those things can be reasons why you might make this decision, but it's about who is the best player now, who is the best player still available on the board. So, do you have any questions, or did I explain that thoroughly?
No, you explained it as well as you could have explained it. I think it's always up to interpretation, and I think you and I sometimes have different interpretations of what constitutes as best. So we will disagree with this, absolutely, but also the viewers and listeners might disagree with our list, and so give us a little bit of a slack and a leeway because this is interpretive and subjective. And with that, I think we're good to go.
I'm just now realizing I messed up the graphics horrifically. You'll be going first today, Saur.
Yeah.
And on this graphic, I realize it might look like I'm going first and you're going second. That is not the case, Saur. You will be doing odd numbers and I will be doing even numbers because last time I went first. So without further ado, and I apologize for my mishap, who's the number one pick?
I mean, this is the easiest one that I could get, right? I always like going first in these games because I get to choose none other than Lionel Messi. We can move on to the next one.
See, here's the problem is the first choice was the easiest one, and I think the second pick is the hardest.
It was the worst. Oh, so difficult.
So,
and I can explain.
I'm happy to stick on pick number one for a while.
Yeah. Listen, if you talk about the best player when it comes to form, stats, whatever, any proxy that you want to pick, Messi has to be the first one. He's leveled up from our last draft. So if we could have gone from a first to a first A, I think Messi would have been that first A as well, because this entire season, barring a run of games where the entire team was playing poorly, Messi has been above and beyond, and there is no reason that he should be in any other place in this draft. His goal contributions this time of the season compared to last season are speaking for themselves. His availability has shot up. His performances on the pitch, the eye test, the assists, the goals, all the numbers just speak for themselves. He single-handedly took Inter Miami to the next round of the Club World Cup. He has single-handedly pulled Inter Miami out from a very poor run of form. His leadership qualities were tested in this season so far, and he's come out with flying colors with regards to those as well. He has been performing game in and game out. And without Messi, I don't know where we would be in the table. Do I need to say more?
No. Best player on the team, best player in the league, best player in the world, possibly still. I mean, he was phenomenal at the Club World Cup, and he's been even better since. Okay, let's talk about number 2 because this is where everything changes. And I think this is really hard. I think this is the most difficult number pick in the entire draft. I think I'm going to get a lot of flack for this. And I thought about it for a long time. I actually slept on it because I made my decision.
I can confirm.
I made my decision. And then I was like, I still don't feel good about it. I'm going to sleep on it and come back to it. Here's my thought process. Sorry, the choice is Luis Suarez. Here's my thought process. I think there's 5 options for this spot. You can either go with one of Suarez, Alba, or Busquets, or you can go with Segovia or Yannick Bright. So I thought about Segovia and I thought about Yannick Bright. And I decided neither of them is really ready for that spot in the lineup. Segovia has been fantastic. I think he has real holes in his game. And I think that makes a difference. I'm not looking at the chat right now.
You should look at the chat right now.
After I'll look at it. I also didn't want to be a prisoner of the moment. I know Jordi Alba had a phenomenal game on Saturday, but one game does not make a season. And so when I looked at Busquets, Alba, and Suarez, I thought to myself, okay, has any of them kept their form from last season? And I think, no, I think all 3 of them have dropped a little bit, or have dropped. And so if all 3 of them have dropped, that makes it tough. I think if Busquets stayed at the same level he was playing at last year or when he first got here, could have been him. I think Jordi Alba, if he had been doing what he did on Saturday night consistently, it could have been him. But I felt all 3 of them had sort of dropped a little bit in their output. Oh, God, I'm afraid to read the comments.
Oh, you're getting so much flack for this, man. I'm
That's
so
fine.
sorry.
That's fine. And so here's what I did. This is why I made this decision. I went back to our last draft, and I went back to the draft before that, and the draft before that, and the draft before that. And it was Messi and Suarez as number 1 and 2 every single time. Every single time we've done this, it's been Messi and Suarez 1 and 2. And that means that we think up until recently, including you, who's been not overly hyped on Suarez for most of his tenure at Inter Miami, he was the second best player on this team. And I think if all of them are in bad form by their standards, I'm sticking with what we thought 6 months ago. So I've gone with Luis Suarez. I am ready to take the flack for it. But I also think by me taking him now, we can skip this conversation and the rest of the draft will go much smoother. So give me Luis Suarez number 2, and we can just move on to number 3.
Just a little insight into the behind the scenes. The way we do this is Scotty and I both pick our top 20 lists separately, and then we combine the 2 based on who goes first and who goes second. And everyone who's pointing out that Scotty should be fired, I've already put in a petition with the HR department, and they're considering it. This is a crime, and I agree with that.
Hey,
that being said,
did you see that goal versus Palmeiras?
Oh my God, not again. I'm going to mute you the next time you use that Palmeiras goal. For me, this was actually much more simple than for you, and I know you struggled with it. We actually sat down and had a conversation about the draft immediately after you picked Suarez because we knew this would be a controversial choice. That being said, it's your decision, and I can understand where you're coming from. I'll be completely honest. I'm not going to give you flack for this. For me, it was Sergio Busquets. I think Sergio Busquets may not be at the same. It is my number 3 pick, and perhaps we can go into this. But for me, Luis Suarez's level has dropped a lot in terms of productivity, in terms of form, in terms of stats. And for that reason, I think just the overall feeling around Suarez is not great. And he has dropped a level down. And for me, that needs to reflect in the draft. Uh, Spoiler alert, I still picked him in the top five. But for me, Suarez was not the number two. It had to be Sergio Busquets. Sergio Busquets, for a majority of this season, has been very, very good in that midfield. Just calms things down, makes sure everything is ticking. We can keep talking about his skill set, but he's probably been the most consistent at a time when others in and around him were not performing that well. We were completely lauding Sergio Busquets for some of the performances that he put in. In the Club World Cup, he looked really good against certain teams. Against some teams, it wasn't that great. But I think overall, his season has been very good. And for me, he has to be at least top three, if not top two. So I picked Sergio Busquets as my number three choice.
Yeah, I get it. And by the way, I respect it. I respect anyone that puts Suarez lower. Like I said, I thought long
Yeah.
and hard about it. What I will say is, we did an episode about Rodrigo de Paul 2 weeks ago, and we thought this might mean Busquets is retiring. And you said, I think Busquets has lost a step. And I've heard lots of people say Busquets has lost a step. And we did an episode Monday night with Mike, and he said he doesn't think Busquets can play center back anymore. And despite the fact we saw it last year 20 times. So I agree. I think Busquets has been pretty good this year with a few notable exceptions. That said, like, I think the general consensus is Busquets has also lost a step, and I actually don't really want to feed into that because I don't know if that's necessarily true, but um, like I think when you look at these guys, and we'll get to Jordi Alba next, spoiler alert, I think all of them have sort of been downgraded a step, but I'm also of the belief that it's because of the system we played. So maybe that's a little bit also into it. Is I think their talent is still in there, and I think what we're doing with the ball and with our 11 is not getting the best out of these guys. And I see more from Suarez. I think there's like more potential from where Suarez is at in terms of his current form to where he could be than necessarily Busquets and Alba. That said, I think Busquets was my number three as well. So same top. I totally agree with this pick.
Just
Uh,
one last word on Busquets. I think him losing a step is like a baby step, and Suarez losing a step is like a giant step. So that's the only distinction that I use between 2 and 4 or 5 or 6, wherever I place Suarez. Not going to spoil it right now, but I completely understand your point of view on this. So that's fine.
Jordi Alba, number four. He has it still, obviously. And when he's given the opportunity to show it, I think he shows it. And not to go back to Suarez. Last time I mentioned Suarez, I promise. I think if we gave Suarez opportunities to show it, he would show it. We finally give Jordi Alba an opportunity to show it, and he still got it. He was phenomenal on Saturday. But I really struggled to put him any higher because we haven't seen this consistently this season. Not because I don't think it's there, but because I think the coach isn't letting him do what he's got to do. So Jordi Alba, number four. I thought about Telasco Segovia. I thought about Yannick Bright. I'm still going with Jordi Alba because when he's on, he can change the game for you.
No, I think you mentioned it really well. And the one player that personifies that, who is a victim of Mascherano's tactics the most, is probably Jordi Alba. His level is still there. Absolutely no doubt. He showed that in the last game that we played, showed that he can take the game by the scruff of its neck and change it with his talent. His form may not have been consistently good, but I think the one player that is really suffering because of Javier Mascherano's tactics is Jordi Alba. I could not bring myself to put him at number two just because I thought Busquets for me was more consistent than Alba. Of course, you picked Suarez, so that's fine. But for me, among the four, Alba has been the one who's suffered the most. And it's not a matter of losing a step. It's a matter of how Inter Miami has been playing. And because of that, we haven't necessarily seen the best of Alba. But I still think the talent absolutely there, the quality still there. Still one of the best left backs the league has ever seen. Still one of the best left backs in the league currently. And it's just a matter of how we use him. So Alba at 4, completely agree. That was my choice as well.
Okay, the big four go number four. I do want to put for the record, say for the record, we have not always put these four as the top four. We have had a Diego Gomez slip in there. We've had a Robert Taylor slip into that top four. So this is not like we're married to these four, but right now I think this is where we're at. And so with that said, talk to me about number five.
Number five for me, the player who has grown every game, the player that has shown that despite Javi Mascherano's tactics, the talent level is immense. And the player for me who is probably the most ready to take the next step, and potentially a player other than the Barcelona four who can change the game by himself, Telasco Segovia. I placed him number four. So I did actually move the top four around and did not just pander to the Barcelona boys. He has been incredible, especially over the run of the last 2 months. Segovia has shown a different maturity level, a different skill set that we didn't see when he was playing as a wide forward. Now that he's playing as a wide midfielder, I think he's shining a lot brighter. His ability to just take responsibility, to just command the ball and play with it is incredible. And I really enjoy what I'm seeing from Segovia right now. The best signing that we've had this transfer season. And I think that has to be recognized in the draft.
I think this is an interesting point because Segovia, I agree, would have been my next pick as well. He's ultra talented. The skill, the talent. I think we've seen some off-ball work ethic, work rate improve as well. Like he's really rounding into incredible form. He's a stud. I'm wondering if we are at a point where we're supposed to justify Segovia not being in the top four, or if we're just praising him as the best of the rest. And what I mean by that is, like, how close is he to being in that top four? Really, I know you said you would have had him above Suarez, but I guess cracking past Alba and Busquets, how close was that in your mind? And did you almost pull the trigger, or was it, is there still kind of a gap there?
So for me, the only factor was Suarez. I think Segovia was quite a ways away from Alba and Busquets. And if Suarez hadn't had the level of, hadn't had the drop that he's had, especially in the contributions, I think it would have been very close, and I probably would have put Suarez above Segovia. Um, but I think for me, there's still a little bit of a gap just in terms of the quality there. If you want to keep all things equal and not consider Suarez's latest run of form, and I agree, you can place the blame on Javier Mascherano on this. I think there's just a little bit of a gap still, and Segovia will eventually get there, but of course, he hasn't nearly done enough in terms of impact that the other four have across their time at Inter Miami, not just in their careers, but at Inter Miami itself. So I think there's still a little bit of a gap between Segovia and the top four. Um, but if you consider Suarez's recent run of form, I put him right above Segovia, but I struggled with that decision below Segovia.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a gap still. I don't think it's that close.
But the trajectory
Suarez,
is very much positive.
yes, but I think about Segovia, and I think defensively he's fine. He's not like good defensively. And that's not a shot at him, but I mean, like compared
No,
to a Diego Gomez last year, who was an absolute wrecking ball defensively, Segovia is not that. And like I think of him as like a passer, and he's not like Jordi Alba or Sergio Busquets, and he's not a ball carrier like Jordi Alba is, and he's like we've seen Jordi Alba can finish just as well as Telasco Segovia, even though Segovia's got more goals this year. So I think there's a long way to go for Segovia to get into that top four, and I would be surprised actually if we get there with him this year. But and it's going to give it even harder when we have Rodrigo de Paul. That said, I think the fact that we can even have this conversation is like a testament to how well he's played. Because if we go to a couple players moving forward, there won't even be a conversation about whether they're sort of one of the best four players or as good as these Barcelona guys. So um, he's been immense, and he's gotten better and better over the course of the season. So huge talent. Love that he's on our team, and he's been the gem of the offseason so far. And I got his jersey with the blue shirt. So I'm happy with him. Number 6, And I think this is the last one before a drop off. I went with Yannick Bright. Defensively, he is a ball winner extraordinaire. I think when you think about Diego Gomez being that type of player defensively, I think Yannick Bright is just as good as Diego Gomez was. Not quite the same style. He's not always in your face, not always pressuring you high up the field, but his uncanny ability to understand where to be, to pick balls up, to win balls off defenders, to intercept passes, to make it all look easy, and then the growing aspects of his game. I think he's been unbelievably good this year. And I think that just the last couple games when we see him come off the bench for a few cameos, like you're reminded how much better he is than a Kramaski or a Redondo or anyone else who's playing in that midfield.
More so than anything, he's a unicorn on this team. Nobody
He
does
is.
what he does. And his performance levels have obviously been more consistent than any other player on this team over the last year and a half since he debuted. But also, you can see that he's adding layers to his game. He used to be a ball winner, an interceptor, pure destroyer. I think this season, since the preseason, he's started to demonstrate his ability to put in line breaking passes. His combination play has improved a lot more. His ability to be involved in the final third has improved a lot more. I'm still waiting for him to get that first goal. But Yannick Bright for me is everything you want from a homegrown player and more. And the sky's the limit for this player. If he hadn't been injured over the last month and a half, 2 months, I think he would have definitely made my top five, if not top four. Uh, and I'm so excited that he's finally back because he is going to be a major, major part of our rest of the season and the playoff run that we want to put together. I hope Javier Marchano gives him the opportunity, even with Rodrigo de Paul coming in. We'll see, but I think he's such a good player that he's going to eventually make a mark for himself and prove himself again if he has to. This is my top six. So I'm glad that we're on the same page with that. Yes, a few shuffles here and there, but this is my top six. And after this, it becomes a lot more difficult as to who's going to round out the top 10. But Bright is it, right? Has to be the top six.
Yeah, let's go back to March, the last time we did this. We had Segovia number 7, Allen number 6, Yannick Bright number 5. I don't think we feel dramatically different about those guys, but I agree now. I think there's a drop off from here. Okay, who's number 7?
I think it's Noah Allen. Right. Yes, it's Noah Allen. Sorry, I had to check myself a little bit because it can get confusing and I'm not great with numbers. Again, a player who has elevated his game to a whole different level. I genuinely did not think that we would be having this conversation about Noah Allen um, maybe 10 months ago. And a player who has improved leaps and bounds to the point that he's become the best center back in this team. Uh, I think you and I can both agree on that. He's been brilliant. We've missed him since he's been injured. And honestly, I think our defense is for the poorer without him available. And he was great in the Club World Cup. He's been great against really good oppositions. And I think every time he's been asked to put a performance against a tough opposition, he just shows up. And he's been brilliant. Again, I think it's it's a moment of pride for us that a lot of these youngsters, super draft picks, academy prospects are now being considered within the top 10 players of this team. And that wouldn't have been the case last season.
You put Noah Allen in this spot or this range last time we did this, and I thought that was bold.
Eye for
I had
talent,
him
man.
I had him lower, and I want to give you credit because he's absolutely lived up to it. Um, and that's why I bring it up because he's been consistently really, really, really good. Uh, I think Maxi Falcone has put in the best center back performances of the season, but then I watch him be so incredibly inconsistent. Whereas Noah Allen is just good every single game, every single game. Even when he goes to left back, he's still pretty good. And he hasn't played there a ton because, and by a ton, I mean in the last couple of years because of Jordi Alba. But at left side center back, he is so consistently good every single game that I think he deserves to be here. And like you said, it's a point of pride. Um, 2 years ago, and maybe Messi's arrival would be like a good demarcation here. When Messi arrived, I think we were looking at Kremaski and Ian Frey as the two homegrowns that really, really, really had a high ceiling. And Noah Allen was like a nice piece, but he was the backup left back. And we knew Jordi Alba was coming. And like he hadn't really shown out what he could really be in the high end potential. And so for us to be here 2 years later with Noah Allen ahead of those guys, I think really goes to show that he has absolutely come into his own, not just because he's been good, but because he's been good every single time he goes out there.
Yeah, and I think it's the consistency. It's genuinely the consistency and the maturity with which he's been playing. I don't remember a game in recent memory where I've looked at Noah Allen's performance and been like, you were a problem. And that goes back to last season. And that's saying a lot. So well done to him. And I don't know what your number 7 was, but for me,
It's
it's
Noah
Noah
Allen.
Allen. Yeah.
No, it was Noah Allen for me too. Um, okay, number 8, I'm going with Ian Frey. Upside is immense. The talent is immense. We've seen him at center back be good. We've seen him at right back be really, really special. We've seen him in the defensive midfield spot be good. It's the injuries, and this one is unfortunate. It happened at like a key moment, right? It'd been really fun to see him play against PSG, uh, but it's a short-term one, and he should be back relatively soon. He's so fun to watch. He's really so fun to watch, and if he was an Iron Man, and he's never going to be, but if he was an Iron Man, he might be like a top 4 player on this team right now because like the upside is there. We don't draft on upside, we draft on talent, but um, like he's got a lot of it.
The first time we did this, I think we draft him? Maybe not, but we discussed it, the possibility of having him the
Can look it
first
up.
time we did it, and I think at that point we talked about potential. The second or third time we did it, I think we drafted him based on, okay, he's showing some glimpses of who we think he can be. I think this time, and I had him at number 8 as well. Um, he's here. He's arrived. Ian Frey has arrived as part of this Inter Miami team. The injuries are the slight concern, but if you put that aside, for me, Ian Frey is, I think, the highest potential player that we have amongst all the other players, barring the top 4. I would even consider him
I agree.
perhaps being in the top 4 if it weren't for the injuries or just the slight issues that he's faced this season with injuries. But whether you put him in the centre back position, he proved this season that he is ready to play that role. But in that right back, nobody can touch him. I think he's phenomenal. And yes, he may have a couple of games here and there that are not up to the mark, but it's just so fun to watch him play, carry the ball. And we haven't spoken about this for Yannick Bright, Noah Allen, and Ian Frey, but I think for all three of them, it's the fearlessness with which they play and the pride with which they carry that badge and that shirt. And it's immense. And I love that about them. And Ian Frey represents everything good about this club when it comes to building the culture.
Just a fun fact: Ian Frey was chosen 8th when we did this in March, and he was chosen 8th when we did this at the end of last season. So consistently been one of the guys we're very high on, and I think there's upward mobility for him if
Oh,
he can stay on the
absolutely.
field. One of the things I want to say before I get to your number 9th pick, um, half this group is the Barcelona 4 who were brought with Messi. And almost half the group is homegrowns and super draft picks. Segovia is really the one player that they had to go out and find and recruit that they identified and has been a stud. There's been a lot of development, a lot of, a super draft pick. Like these are the ways you're supposed to build rosters in the MLS. And we've obviously gotten lucky, and South Florida is a big talent hub, so that helps. But I think it goes to show that you're not always better off going and spending $1 million in South America or in Argentina or picking up a free agent who used to play in the La Liga or whatever. Like there's real talent to be had if you're smart about how you use it. And sometimes it's all about trusting the guys that you can bring in because they have more talent if they're given the opportunity. Um, okay. Pick number 9. What you got?
I struggle with this one a lot, and I feel like I've gone back to 60 FPS. Tadeo Allende. If you asked me this question based on form, I would have probably put him lower because he hasn't been great recently. He's shown his vulnerabilities as a player, can be fairly one dimensional. A lot of people have said he only does one thing, which is a fair assessment. But you can't discount the fact that he has double digit goals this season across all competitions, double digit goal contributions this season across all competitions. And he scores when it matters, or at least when it sometimes matters. And I think he has a utility. He can be an important player for this team. And perhaps by the end of the season, he may reach 20 goals, which is a good contribution from a forward. And a forward line that depends on Messi and Suarez so much. I think Tadeo Allende has been underrated in the goals that he scored. So I think we had to reflect that on this list. And for me, I struggled a little bit. I was very hesitant when I sent it to you, but I think I'll stick with my pick. Tadeo Allende, number 9.
I'm fine with this. I had Allende 11, but you'll see why
Yeah.
in a minute, and it will be along the same lines of how you were thinking. Um, I think we got to the end of the portion of players we feel really, really good about, and it's shorter than it has been in the past. And I think that's a reflection of the depth of this team. We can talk more about big picture takeaways at the end, but I think that's something to note. Um, I think this is a fine pick. Allende, 11 goals, could finish with with 20, and that would be a huge season for a wide forward for Inter Miami. And I think he's not well rounded. I think you said that well, but the talent that he does have is real and is effective, and so I think this is fine. I struggle with 2 picks in my whole list, and one was Suarez, and I certainly talked about him. But the other was this pick, number 10, and I'm going with Drake Callender at goal. Um, I think we've run out of players that I feel really good about. I think even before Allende, I felt that way. And so now we're looking at, okay, who do I actually like? Who do I think is good? Who do I think can have a big impact? And I think Drake Callender is the next name on that list. To me, he's a better player than Oscar Ustadi. I think the stats back that up. Um, and so when I'm looking at, who would I take next in terms of outfield players, I don't really love the options. And so I decided, let me look at the goalkeepers. I think Calendar's the best goalkeeper on the roster. And so I went with Drake Callender, number 10.
That's fair. I don't disagree with this at all. I had him further down. I had him, I think, 14. For me, it was, I think, the recency. Um, he hasn't played nearly enough games, and I think there are players who I would put slightly above Calendar. I don't have much to add to this. I don't know. I don't know how this would play out, and I'm not sure if Calendar deserves to be in the top 10. Maybe if he comes back with a bang, I could agree with it a lot more. But I understand your reasoning on this, and honestly, people have forgotten how well Calendar can sometimes
Do
play and
you
how important he can be for this team.
do you agree with me that he I'm sorry, do you agree with me that the roster feels less deep than you did a year ago?
Absolutely.
Where do you think we had Drake Callender a year ago?
A year ago, I think
Mhm.
we had him in the top 7, top 8,
Number
maybe.
7.
Yeah.
So this is a guy when he's playing, we believe in. Um, he hasn't played, but that doesn't mean he's a worse player.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So that's how I went about it. Um, okay, number 11.
And I should preface before going to number 11 that the distinction between 9 to maybe 12, 13, even 14 perhaps is not that much. And I can switch around fairly easily. So I'm happy with this list so far. Kramaski, one player that I actually considered putting further up in the list is Benjamin Kramaski, just because his recent performances have really started to shine. He has started to show exactly what the talent is. exactly what he's capable of. But I think he's still a little bit raw and unrefined compared to some of our other academy graduates. I'm sure he's on his way to Europe very soon. He's going to be picked up by a big team, but his impact and the way he contributes to the team is not the same level as Allen, Frey, or Bright. But fantastic player. And that's why I was a little bit confused whether Kramaski should be above Allende or whether he should be below. But I went with Kramaski as my number 10 in this list, number 11, just because I think he's been great this season. I think he's come into his own this season, and the potential is immense.
Yeah, Kramaski, he was 15th at the end of last season. And I think he's been really good and developed. He's gotten better this season.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's fitting for him to get a little bit of a bump. He was my next field player as well. So I agree with this pick. He's been versatile, but when we've seen him play as sort of a box to box midfielder, which is not that often because we don't play a ton of games with that box to box midfielder, and we only play with the midfield two nowadays. So it's gotten tougher for him to see the field in his natural spot. When he's there, he's been really good. And even when he's been played out of position, I've seen some things that I'm like, oh, that's new. That's like you trying to get better at this. And I really appreciate that. So Kramaski, really nice player. I think he's going to have a nice future in Europe. And I'm kind of curious to see what his role looks like with Yannick Bright coming back from injury and Rodrigo de Paul, because I think this is still a player that deserves minutes.
Absolutely. All right, who's your next choice?
Number 12, I'm going with Oscar Ustari. I had both Ustari and Calendar ahead of Allende and Kramaski because I just think, well, that's where I rated them in terms of their talent. But I think Calendar is a better goalkeeper, but that doesn't mean I don't think it doesn't mean I don't think Ustari is a good, solid goalkeeper. I think he's a really solid player, and he's been good for the team this year. So for me, I had him number 10 overall, one spot behind Drake. And I think he's like a good, solid piece. I think we're probably paying him too much money. I think it's weird that we've committed to him over a long period of time, considering his age and sort of where he is on the rest of the world's map, right? I don't think we're competing with a lot of teams to keep him, but that doesn't mean he's not a good player. He's a good player. And so I think he probably deserves to be right around here on this list.
I had him number 11 in my list after Allende and Kramaski and before Calendar. But my justification for that was because I think he fits slightly better to how Javier Mascherano wants to play. The way we play when Javier Mascherano puts us, I think Calendar fits that more. But I think in his mind, with what he wants the keeper to do, I think Ustari does that slightly better. But again, it's so close to call.
See, I feel the opposite. I think if we had Tata Martino playing a super high line and we were chasing balls back the other way a lot, like Ustari could make a lot of sense because I think his instincts when it comes to sweeping are better than Drake's. But we've been playing so low that he rarely gets to even show it off. Instead, we're allowing the opposing team to get in our box and facing more shots. And so you actually, I think, would want a better shot stopper, and Drake's clearly a better shot stopper. So I don't know, but I think they're both. I think Ustari belongs right in here. So
yeah, I think that's. I mean, I had him 11, so it's a very close choice, and we said what we had to say.
It
about
was my
Ustari.
pick, so I want to pat myself on the back for the good pick.
No, good.
Go ahead. Who's number 13?
Toto Aviles. Easy. I think we're coming to a point where I'm very not as comfortable with some of the picks and my decisions. And I think Toto Aviles, despite what people might think about him, honestly, I think his talent might be more than number 13, but just the performances that he's put in. And I was thinking about what areas of the pitch we haven't covered. We've talked about defense, Allen, but I think next in line for me, the player who's most consistent in terms of their contributions to this team is Toto Aviles. And I also thought of it in this way. I don't know if I would like Aviles to be lower than 13. And some of the players that come after this, I was like, he's better than them. And I know a lot of people give him a lot of criticism for his play style, his yellow cards, and all of that. But if you continue to rewatch games, he always comes out much better than he did in the first watch. And I think there's a player here in Aviles. He hasn't been able to break out. He hasn't been able to do the things that other players like Allen and Frey and Yannick Wright have been able to do. And if he improves his consistency, he might actually be higher up for me. But I think 13 is good for him.
People make too much of the yellow cards.
Yeah.
Does he
Agreed.
get too many yellow cards?
Yes.
Yes. Does getting a yellow card potentially hurt your team? Yes. Can you also have a good, solid performance with a yellow card in your game? Yes. And I think that's what Toto Aviles does a lot. He has really nice games where he gets a yellow card and people assume he had a bad game because he got a yellow card, where in all actuality, he was pretty good.
Yeah.
I think he's the second best center back. He was my next pick as well. So I fully on board with this pick. I think this is my exact number 13. Like first 13 in a different order slightly, but I think this is the right choice. I think he's the second best center back. I think he's one of our best. I think if you're creating a best 11, he probably fits into it because he's our number 2 center back. And also, like you, I wish there was a couple other players I felt much better about. But this is where we're at with the roster. And in terms of center backs, I think this is the right player.
Absolutely.
Okay, number 14. Who do I have? Okay, and then I thought this was another drop off here. I think there's another drop off between 13 and 14. I went with Maxi Falcone. I feel much better about Toto Aviles than I do about Falcone. Falcone's had some monster performances, but he's also had some really poor ones. You can start him on this roster. Like I'm if he starts, I'm not upset about it. But he's not like a high end ceiling raiser type player. He's had some big moments, but he's fine. That's it. He's fine. Inconsistent, good, sometimes bad.
The first time I made this list, I put him higher. The second time I reconsidered the list, I put him lower than 14. Oh, yeah. And then the third time I made this list, he's, I think, my 13th choice. I think Drake Callender is the one that falls further down in my list on 14. And then Falcone is 13, and everyone else is the same as yours. I completely get your point. He's had some performances where I'm like, dude, this is a player, man. And then there's some performances that are so underwhelming, and you can just see there's gaping holes in his play. And if he was a second choice center back that was a backup option to our main 2 center backs, I would have been very happy with how he performs and what he contributes to this team. But I want more from him, and he hasn't been able to give us that so far. Do I doubt that he might have a really good performance in the playoffs if we ask him to? No. I think he has that in his locker. But I just think there's some vulnerabilities in his performance placed out, not his own fault. For instance, his aerial abilities. That really hurt into Miami sometimes and in certain games. And for that reason, I don't think he can ever be a starting center back. So I agree with this pick as well. Very close to what I had him as.
I think Falcone's style with the hair, with the sort of putting your head into the ball as much as you can, being on the back line with the game saving goals, like he could have been an absolute fan favorite. And the fact that he's not, I think does go to show like
Yeah.
he's fine. If he was, like the 8th best player on this team, we might be talking about him like he's our favorite player because of some of the like style swagger type things. But the fact that he's not, I think, kind of explains why he's not that high on the list in terms of talent. Okay, number 15. What you got?
I've lost my list for a second, so I might interject with a comment here from Josu, who says that at some point availability should be considered as a factor, and he has been more healthy than Frey. I agree. That's a valid point to make. I just don't think that's a consideration we use entirely in our selection of this list. It sometimes comes into play, but I think if availability was actually a thing that Frey was good at, he'd be higher up on this list. So just wanted to point that out while I filibustered a bit.
Well,
My
let me
next
let me
pick.
give you a minute. Let me give you a minute because this is some behind the scenes. We talked about changing the way we rank these once we got to the Suarez pick, which was real early. Talked about maybe there's a better way to do this. And then I think came to the conclusion that it's best for us to keep the same criteria every time and not change it for one draft because of a certain player that's difficult to rank or whatever. So we started by doing the best player, and form and stats and potential and availability were like factors, but ultimately it was who is the best player. And I think that's why we're sticking with it this way. Okay, so who you got at 15th?
Federico Redondo. I think that's the perfect position for him. Let's move on. Perfectly average player for
Can I?
a
Go ahead.
substitution piece, for a bench piece. I think that's all I have to say.
Well, let me just quickly go to number 16. I'm going to Cello Wagon. I had Wagon at 15, Redondo at 16. They're the same to me. They are solid, average MLS players who sometimes are really poor and almost never are like really good. Um, but when they're solid to good, like we're happy with it, and they're not bad that often. So average MLS players, I think these two fit in that same category. Um, did you have these two? Like, do you think of these two in the same way?
Oh yeah, 15, 16 on my
Okay.
list.
Okay.
Exactly the same. And I laugh because I think you said it really well that both of them are average MLS players that do a job for this team, and that's it.
Um, Gabriela says Suarez needing so much justification that he almost shifted the rules. It's too funny. Yeah. Okay. Give me number 17. What you got?
Fafa Pico, number 17. And this was sad. This was very, very sad for me because I think if he played more, he'd be higher. I think if he played more, he'd be higher. He's a player. He's more than an above average MLS player. This is a player that you can really utilize. He's a weapon. He's not a player that you start every single game. He's not a player that you put in the starting 11 every single game. But if you use his skill set well, he can produce big numbers for you. And at this point in his career, I wish he'd been utilized in a better manner than Fafa Pico. And I don't think this is a true reflection of him as a player because I do think he's more talented than Redondo, Wegan, Falcone, and maybe Ustari in Calendar. We could have put him higher than those two as well. But I think he's just not been used. And that's really sad. And that's why he's so low on my list.
He's a better player than Redondo and Cello, I think.
Yeah,
But we haven't seen it because he hasn't been
exactly.
given the opportunity. Um, and I think that's why this is the right place. I had him right here as well. I've said this all the time about Suarez and Jordi Abbott. Like, I don't think we play a system that suits our attacking players. And I think Fafa has also been the victim of that. Like, I think that extends to all of our attacking players. So if he played more and he played in a system that really maximized what our offense could be, then yeah, I think he could have shot up this list and been maybe even like top 10. I'm not 1,000% sure he's a worse player than Allende, but
Exactly.
he hasn't been given the opportunity to show us what he is at his best. And so I think this is where he goes kind of by default. And as some people in the chat are saying, it is kind of sad because I think when we signed this player, we were really excited. I've seen him play for Vancouver and Nashville over the last couple of years, 3-4 games, not enough to make my determination on this for, but we thought he could be like a really key piece for us this year. And that hasn't really been the case. And I don't think it has to do with Fafa Pico as a talent.
So maybe Fafa Pico with an asterisk.
Yeah. Okay, number 18. I think we had another drop off actually at this point.
At this point, I was scrambling to find names to put on this list because I was just, and you can put anyone and I'd be happy with that.
Here's what I will say. When we did this list in March, we had Robert Taylor, number 18. I love Robert Taylor, and I would be happy for him to start in this team. And that was our 18th player. So the fact that we're about to go with who I'm about to pick at 18, I think does show a lot about how much less deep this roster is compared to what it was a year ago. I'm going with David Ruiz, who has not played a ton this year. I don't think there's. I think he's a young player that is prepared to break out when he's given an opportunity. I wouldn't be shocked if he's traded in this transfer window for allocation money. There doesn't seem to be a bright future in terms of minutes for David Ruiz at Inter Miami because I don't think he's going to pass Yannick Bright. He's certainly not going to be above Rodrigo de Paul. So even though Busquets might be leaving and a Kremaskin or Redondo might be getting sold, I still don't think there's a future in the next year or two for David Ruiz to step into a consistent starting role. They just signed him to a new contract. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they're using that as leverage to trade him for allocation money to help him get his career started. Maybe started's the wrong word, but to get consistent playing time and help him develop and, national team aspirations and all that stuff. But I do think he's a good piece. And so I'm excited he's back and healthy. I'm sad we haven't seen more of him, and I'm sure it was a very tough injury to come back from. And he's my number 18 pick.
I didn't have him on my list, but that's not because I don't respect him as a player or I don't rate him as a player. It's because, honestly, I just wanted to finish the list at 18, 19, 20, and I had Leo Alfonso on the 18th position just because I think there's so much impact that Leo Alfonso can actually make on this team if he plays and if he's given the opportunity. Javi Mascherano has been criminal in the minutes that he's given to the depth pieces, and I think that reflects in this draft because a lot of the depth pieces we would have a better judgment of who they are as players if we actually saw them play this season. David Ruiz obviously has been injured, but I don't think he gets opportunities from Javi Mascherano, even if he's available. Similarly, with the next three players that we pick, I think Leo Alfonso, for me, stands slightly higher than Ruiz, and I just wanted to fill these three spaces. So, and I still remember his Philadelphia goal.
I think Leo Alfonso would have had a much bigger role if Tata Martino was still here. I think the speed over the top is real. I think it's harder because Allende provides that, and I think Alfonso could have settled into a nice number 2 role there. But then they signed Fafa Picault, and so after you have both of those guys, the minutes for Alfonso were going to be limited because this isn't the style that Javier Mascherano plays. I think there's some talent there too, man. I think there's some potential, and I wish we got to see more of him. I think he can play at this level. And so when we're talking about Allende starting every single game, when we're talking about Segovia starting every single game, I'm just thinking to myself, Alfonso's sitting on like 50 minutes for the whole season, and he could be sitting at 400, and Inter Miami would be better off for it probably. So I like the pick. He was my number 21. So I didn't have him in my top 20, but I think it all makes sense. And this is sort of in line with everything with the rest of these players that we're getting to. And then number 20, I'm going with Baltazar. I haven't been impressed with him so far, but he is athletic. The quickness is there. And I think the fact that so many people believe in him that, I don't know. I think it's real slim pickings at this point. Baltazar has played the most minutes. I certainly think he's a better player than a couple of the other guys on our list. So I went with Baltazar here. But again, I'm not excited for pick number 20 like I have been lots of times in the past. I will just add, when we did this 6 months ago, we had Chelo Weigant number 20. And I would be happy to take Chelo Weigant here if he was still on the board. So I think that's where we're at with this, man.
17, 18, 19, 20 complete throwaways for me. Not because of the players that they are, but because how Javi Mascherano has utilized them, and he's completely killed the depth that we had in this team. And it's not like the depth doesn't exist. It's like the depth is not used. And that's the biggest problem for me. I had Leo Alfonso in, I think, 18, Santi Morales 19, and then Baltazar Rodriguez is 20. We haven't seen enough of Baltazar Rodriguez, and I think he's injured again. So I think it's unfair to rate him any higher than that, but I think there's enough talent there that maybe he's one of the players that can rise. And that's it. That brings us to number 20. Actually, no,
Well,
maybe I had
Baldassar is number
Luhan as
20.
number 20. And that's what I'm saying. Brings us to number 20 and concludes it. I probably had Luhan in my list as well. Or maybe he was number 21. But it doesn't really matter, does it? I think after 15 or 14, this list kind of writes itself. I don't think you and I would get into a major argument if we put anybody else in the 15 to 20 spots that are not on this list. So maybe
Yeah,
Luhan, you might mind
yeah,
that. But
yeah. I put Alan Obando number 20. I had Alfonso right behind Obando. I think there's a player in Obando. I really do. And I just think Javier Mascherano is not willing to take Luis Suarez off, and that's why we don't get to see it. He's also injured now, and that is going to be a shame because he's going to be a starter in La Liga in like 5 years. And we're going to be thinking, like, remember that one game he started at Inter Miami and then he couldn't see the field? Um, and
he
then I had
scored a
Alfonso
goal,
20.
man.
Yeah, he did.
He scored a goal for us.
Uh, I had Lujan 23. I had Alfonso 21, Sailor 22, Lujan 23. And then Morales, Tyler Hall, Boatwright 24, 5, and 6. We haven't seen enough of them. I'm so serious when I say Luan's the worst player on this team in terms of guys that get minutes. Like, I mean that wholeheartedly. That's not like a gimmick. I think he's awful. And so I saw some people in the chat wondering when he was going to come up. It was going to be from you, not from me, because
Yeah.
he's certainly not one of the top 20 players in this team. But again, like, it's not as deep as it was. Again, we had Julian Gressel 19. We had Chelo Wagon 20, Robert Taylor 18 last time. Like, it has been much better. It's probably a little unfair because David Ruiz, Robert Taylor, and Julian Gressel are not on the roster anymore, but they could have been if Inter Miami wanted them to be. So, and if Javier Mascherano wanted them to be, they could have been here, and we could have been talking about a much deeper lineup. But now that we know how the season's played out, they probably would have just been wasting away on the bench. And, well, that's another conversation about Javier Mascherano.
It's a damning statement on how this roster has been used and how the depth has been used by Javi Mascherano. When you and I agree on a draft 80%, I don't think we would get into a fist fight in this. This is fairly straightforward. I think very much to what I wanted the draft to look like, and I think you would agree with that. Somebody mentioned Baltazar Robinson, which reminds us of obviously Robbie Robinson. If he was available as an Inter Miami player, I think he would make the top 20. Just say.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too.
And then, of course, Rodrigo de Paul comes in. I think he fits straight into top 5 just with the quality that he is as a player.
I think he's going to be number 2.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be number 2.
I didn't want to make that statement because he hasn't played a minute for this team. But if he comes in, I would expect him to slot straight into number 2. That being said, I'm very happy with this top 20 draft that we've put together. Not entirely happy with the depth and the pieces that we have available to choose from or the performances and form of some of these players. But overall, this is the state of Inter Miami midway through the season. Hopefully, after the transfer window, it improves a little bit. We may lose a couple of players. We may add a couple of pieces. We'll see how it progresses. We may do this again at the end of the season, but that's your top 20 draft for now.
I think one of the disappointing things is there's no real risers on this list since the last time we did this. Like, the only 2 players that are really higher on this list are Calendar and Ustadi, and that's because I think we think some of the other players aren't as good. Like, I don't think our opinion on Calendar or Ustadi has really changed. I think
What
it's
about
more
Segovia?
Segovia was number 6 last time.
Oh,
no, he was number 7 last time, but I think Yannick Bright, no Allen, Segovia were 5, 6, 7. So small change. I think we believed in Segovia even back then. So, I mean, the list looks pretty similar, except we just don't feel as good. And some of those bottom end names have changed because some guys have left. So I don't know, man. I didn't feel good about the team doing this, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I didn't either. But on a more positive note, let's think about the future. Who do you think is going to be the biggest riser from the list that we have right now?
Well, here are the guys I like potential-wise. I think Kramaski could rise this list. I think
I agree.
passing Calendar and passing Allende and getting into that same tier as a Frey Allen Bright, I think that's in it for him. I'm not sure if he's going to get the opportunity when Rodrigo de Paul comes.
Yeah.
He did not play a lot even when Yannick Bright was healthy. So I don't know. Maybe Baltasar. Like I just I don't see the potential either. I think maybe that's the other disappointing part is I don't think there's anyone like poised to break out. I think we're going
And
to
yeah,
be doing this
that would
again
be
at
a
the end of the
positive
season.
question.
I think we're going to do this at the end of the season, and we're going to say Rodrigo De Paul number 2, and a new center
Everyone
back
else
is
holds a
number
space.
number 16 is a new center back that we didn't have, and that's the list.
I think Baltazar's going to rise a little bit. Kramaski, maybe if he gets the minutes.
Santi Morales, a guy that didn't get picked, I think could be in here next time.
Maybe. I think Bright might sneak into the top 4 next time if he gets minutes.
Segovia and Bright. I think Bright. I'll be honest. Bright might be in the top 4 if he had played in the Club World Cup. If we had seen
Absolutely.
what he did, what he could have done against those guys, maybe we would have had him higher. If there was any player I think was biased by his absence lately, I think it may have been Yannick Bright. So, should we talk about the All-Star game?
Yeah, the All-Star game that's going to take place in what, an hour? I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. No, 2 hours. 2 hours.
I'm not that interested in it if Messi and Alba are not playing, which is a sad state of affairs.
And let's be clear. Well, hold on. Let's be clear.
Yes.
You're not interested in it because your team's players aren't in it.
Exactly.
It's not just because it's Messi and Alba. It's because it's your team's players. And
Absolutely.
they said on the broadcast, the New York Red Bulls, they didn't get anyone that was an all-star this year. And it is frustrating that this Messi situation happened today because I think Red Bulls fans would have been much happier if Eric, Choupo-Moting was at that event. And there's plenty of other teams that didn't get a player. And so for Miami to have 2 players back out literally the day of, I think you can understand why not just Miami fans, but a lot of teams are kind of frustrated with it.
And I'd be happy if you say that, oh, this is a fun event. I can understand that. I enjoy all-star events when all the players get together. And if Messi and Alba were playing, or my team's players were playing, I would watch it because it'd be a fun event. But you can't hold it against us Inter Miami fans if we're not that interested in it.
I also think that Messi and Jordi Alba are not going to be suspended. That's my guess. Would it shock you if they were suspended? This Inter Miami Cincinnati game is
you know what's going to happen?
A big one.
They're going to delay the decision until after the Cincinnati Miami game. They're going to let that game happen and then be like, retroactively, we're going to give them a ban.
That's actually probably worse because then it would be for the Leagues Cup. And as we know, the Leagues Cup, you can't lose in the Leagues Cup and expect to make it out because it's tough. Maxi Falcone is suspended for Saturday's game because of yellow card accumulation. Did you ever think he would get suspended before Totavilas?
I'm telling you, man, it's overrated how much Aviles gets yellow carded. Especially recently.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess that's it, man. Anything else on your mind? I wanted to be positive and do like a breakdown on what we thought about the draft. But the truth is, like, it just felt less deep and less talented and kind of flat.
No, it is flat. I agree with you. I think there's not much analysis we can put to this, right? If you think about the first 1 to number 8, that's, I think, a separate tier. Of course, there's the top 4 tier, but then 1 to 8 is like a tier of players that we can be really comfortable picking. And I think you and I agree on the top 8, maybe one position up and down, but the top 8 is there. 9 to, let's say, 16, which is slightly generous, because I don't want to single out Redondo and Regan. They are contributors in this team. 9 to 16 is like, we're struggling to find the players to put into this spot. And they've all been average players across the board. Maybe not Kramaski, who could be slightly higher, but the rest of them have been fairly MLS level players.
Can I describe it maybe a better way?
Of course.
You get 1 through 8, who I think we like.
Absolutely.
9 through 16, you could upgrade on all of them.
Uh-huh.
And then beyond 16, you're talking about guys that don't really contribute.
Yeah.
And
this is reflective to how Javi Mascherano uses this roster as well. For him, it's, I think, 12, 13 players that he relies on solely. And the rest of it is just throwaway players who don't get that much opportunity to actually prove how good they might be. So I think it's reflective of the team's state right now, how the players are being utilized. And a lot of it doesn't have to do with the players' potential, because I think Fafa Pico could be much higher if he was actually used. I think it just has to do with how they're being utilized in the squad. So there we are. That's the top 20. And that's your analysis on it.
You said it here first. Let me just check Twitter and make sure nothing else has happened in the last hour or so. This Messi All-Star game thing, I think, is a bigger deal than people are making it out to be to the MLS. They thought he was going to show up today. He made the decision, I think, this morning to not come. Like, he woke up and decided, I don't really want to go. And not only did he pull himself out, he pulled Jordi Alba out too. So I wouldn't be shocked if there was a suspension for those two.
Yeah.
And even if it is after, like, it comes on Monday morning, and that means they're suspended for the first game of the Leagues Cup, like, that's not good either. And so I don't know. I guess I wouldn't expect it, but it wouldn't shock me. Stadium security staff were training to deal with a Messi crowd, or not a Messi crowd, but for people trying to rush it to see Messi. Like, they thought he was coming today, up until today. So
I think that's
you can understand why
a
people
little
are upset.
sad for the league. No, absolutely, man. It's a little sad for the league. I think if he'd committed to show up, then he should have shown up.
I also want to say this, because I saw this a lot. People saying, "Oh, they played 2 games a week every 3 days for the last 3 months." Messi, he decided today or last night to not come. Like, this wasn't a pre-planned thing. This wasn't a I'm tired, I need a rest thing. It feels very much like a I don't really want to take a flight kind of thing. And that's sad, I think.
Yeah, it's not right for the league. It's not right for the fans, and it's disappointing. So I can understand why some people are grieving about it. Some people are upset about it, and you take away the spot of players who might have actually enjoyed playing, and it might have been a good opportunity for them to play on the roster, even if it was for 5 minutes or for 10 minutes. I think showing up for the fans would have done a whole world of good. It would have brought more eyes on the MLS, and I think it would have been a nice event and a spectacle, even if Messi played for 5 or 10 minutes. There's
That's the
obviously
other
going to be
thing is,
headlines.
if he didn't want to play, he could have told them,
Just shown
"I don't
up.
want to play,"
Yeah.
and he would
Yeah,
have shown up, and
exactly.
everything would have
Yeah.
been fine. So
Yeah.
yeah. Jay says Messi's bigger than the MLS by a lot. That's true. That doesn't mean you got to rub your face in it every single time you get a chance. You know what I mean? So, if you think Messi's in the right, that's fine. I think you are. I think it's true that Messi probably doesn't need to go to this, and it's fine. That said, I think if you're upset by it and you think that he's being treated unfairly or Miami's being treated unfairly, I think that's probably true also. So, okay, we'll wrap it up there. Saur, final words before we leave it until the pregame show this weekend. What you got for the people?
Big game coming up. It's revenge time. We got destroyed by Cincinnati, if I want to use a nice word. And it's time to prove that we're actually the big dogs in the yard. If we have to do it without Messi, it's going to be very hard, but we're playing at home and there's no excuse to lose. That's the list of the 20 players that we think are good enough to beat Cincinnati. We'll see which of them get used. And we didn't speak about Rodrigo de Paul coming, but he's coming soon. So that's always a positive. And I'm looking forward to the pregame show.
Should we talk about him?
We've already spoken about him.
I think he's in South Florida already. He's just waiting for the work permit. I will say the official
transfer window
opens tomorrow. So as early as tomorrow, you might hear the
announcement.
Welcome to Inter Miami, Rodrigo de Paul from the club. So I think he will play next Wednesday against
Atlas, I think.
Well, now I'm embarrassed because I don't even know our schedule beyond Cincinnati.
I think it's Atlas. The first
our first game is against Atlas. I don't even know how to pronounce our second opponent, but we will learn by the time we get there. Guys, thanks so much for watching. I'm just going to wrap it up because I'm waffling. We will talk to you guys next time. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day.